I would love more people to understand that it's not the fear of it necessarily taking your job. Will it replace some jobs? Absolutely. But I think if you learn to use it to better what you're doing, then you become more invaluable in the market. And I wish they would understand that concept, because you can use it to scale exponentially.
Yeah. So think how powerful it would be for a person interviewing for a job with someone my age, right? So we're just getting comfortable with AI, to say, I have 3 ideas of the way I might use AI in the job description that you gave me and the business that you operate in. Like, what an amazingly powerful thing. There's no way you wouldn't listen and think about what that person said. And I'm sort of encouraging my kids specifically, but also the women I mentor, to say, you have to, that's your approach. How I can help you do things better with this cool tool I have, versus, we're so terrified about losing jobs, and I do understand it, but I don't think robots are going to rule the world in 5 years. I think we might all be really smart because we figured out how to use it properly.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Entrepreneurial Truth. On today's podcast, I have Beth with us. Beth, thank you so much for joining us today. And can you tell us a little bit about your business, who you are, and who you serve?
Yeah. So I'm a couple-time entrepreneur, and I exited 2 services businesses on the consulting side, and I retired. And then it took me about a day and a half to get bored. So with my amazing business partner, Victoria, we started to write a book, which is done, and now will be out September 22nd through Wiley. So we're looking forward to that. And it's called Entrepreneur Like a Mother. And now we do, like, we write content, all that's free for mom entrepreneurs, which was our unique place because we had 9 kids between us and we didn't know anyone like us, and we just kept building our businesses and then sold them. So now I personally do a lot of mentoring and consulting work with mom entrepreneurs. I have a mastermind group. We have a course on our site, and Victoria is very happily retired with her 5 kids, who are aged between 5 and 15, whereas I'm an empty nester and my kids are aged between, now, as of last week, 21 to 24.
Oh, wow. Okay, so there's so much to dive into.
Oh my God, it's a ride. It's a ride.
Wow. So, okay, did you already determine, like, when you started your business, that you were going to retire at a certain age, or like, what did that look like?
That's a great question, because we just talked about this. Victoria and I just talked about this. No, we didn't. As a matter of fact, retirement's been a struggle, because, as you know, like, your business defines you. When you don't have your business, you are like out there in the cold, redefining yourself. So that's what we're right in the middle of. But I'll tell you what we did do. We built the businesses to sell. On day one, we said, we're going to figure out how to build something that isn't just around us, which I think in services businesses, it's really easy to build your business around your own personality. And I totally understand that, but we worked very hard not to do that. And so from second one, we said, we are always going to have a diversified revenue stream, because we know those businesses sell. We're always going to be cash flow positive, because, again, we know those businesses sell. And then in each of them, we really looked for kind of a secret sauce that we thought the market needed. And we really defined ourselves, right or wrong, because we made so many mistakes around that secret sauce. And there's a lot more to it, but I think guys are really great at building something and saying, this thing's worth $1 zillion. And I feel like women, we just didn't turn that switch on. But I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, as did Victoria. So for whatever reason, when we got together, we were both like, yeah, sure, of course. We have $5 in revenue, but someone's going to buy this, you know?
Wow.
So no, not retirement, but financial freedom. And that it is a funny moment in my life at the age I'm at to figure out that you can have financial freedom, which I have, and not want to retire, which I don't.
Wow. Wow. That leads me to a question for you. So, figuring out who would buy that secret sauce of yours, like, how did you figure out who your ideal audience was and if they'd actually buy what you're selling?
Okay. So that is another great question. And I will tell you like the two secrets, which once you know, you know. Number one, businesses, no matter what they are, the majority of businesses sell for between 5 and 9 times cash flow. Our first business sold around 5. Our second business sold for well above 9. But I learned that from my dad, who's a serial entrepreneur. He said, I don't care what you're making. I don't care what you're doing. It doesn't matter. Assume that you can get 5 to 9 times cash flow for your business. Like if you have a new AI business right now and like, you know, something that does your vacuuming for you, you're probably going to get 8 million times cash flow. But the rest of us mere mortals, we always know 5 to 9 times cash flow. And so again, we built back from that number and said, well, what would we both like to take home from that business? What would our cash flow have to be? And we, you know, slowly over 8 years built that. So that's number one. Number two, and in the first business, we bumbled our way into this. We didn't know. In the second business, we knew. So we were in a niche of consulting called investor relations, which was public companies, helping them communicate what their results are. Not more than that, but that's kind of the gist of what it was. So in our first business, we realized we were the tiny guy and there were huge firms that did things around us. And we went to them and said, look, we are a great little add-on for your team that's selling a huge PR program. And we're a great add-on that will take on this little sliver of investor relations. And this is what we charge. And if you make money over and above what we charge, great, good for you. What we didn't realize we were doing was that we were ultimately building relationships with buyers. These big PR firms, one of which bought us, needed our little niche. They didn't have it. They started to work with us. They liked us. They saw the value that we delivered to the client. We kept those relationships going. Again, we only kept them going because they were business referral sources. We were desperate. We were slowly building up like literally a cold call sales engine. So 50% of our business came from cold calls. We were super young. We didn't have a network yet. 50% came from these PR firms. PR firms were the ultimate buyer of our business. And when we got of size, they started to approach us. So here's what we did in the second business. We just decided, look, we are going to keep in contact with every potential buyer from the time we're interesting. So some were partnerships, some were just me or Victoria reaching out to a CEO and saying, hey, could we pick your brain for 15 minutes? You have this amazing business. We have this tiny business. Love to learn from you. Can I buy you a cup of coffee? Will you talk to me for 15 minutes? And usually, you know, out of every one, maybe 5 of those outreaches I would do, maybe 1, maybe 2 would take me up on it. And 1 would be really useful. And every week I did 5 outreaches. I got 1 contact. Every quarter, we sent them either like a personal note or we're like, oh my gosh, we just got a big client using your strategy, or here's an article that might be helpful. We just were really good at keeping in touch with people, which I think LinkedIn is super powerful to do that. So by the time, again, we got of size, we outreached to them this time and said, look, we've got this. We had started a new business in environmental, social, and governance, which is where DEI is included, right as that was getting to be an interesting topic before it got to be a really hot topic.
Mm-hmm.
So we approached the firms that we knew and these individuals that we had built relationships with and said, look, we have a nugget of goodness that you need in your business. You should buy us. We have 40 people dedicated to the thing that you have ads out trying to recruit ESG specialists, but we have 40 people that are trained, that work with us, that know how to deal with clients. And you could just do a plug and play. And that's how it worked out. I mean, so a lot of that sounds like heady. And first of all, everyone needs to remember everything I'm talking about, that happened over 8 to 10 years. That was not like I put out a great social media post and everyone came, like everyone needs to remember, just like every week I had on my list, reach out to 5 people. I got rejected all the time. I was just talking with my daughter, who's a photographer, and she's like, Mom, for every 10 outreaches, only 1 gets back to me. I'm like, that's a pretty good ratio. You're fine. So, remember, number 1, it takes a while.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, they're not coming to you. You're going to them, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to them just to build a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that the third is just that, just like you have your weekly to-do list, you're writing that down every week. Like, I'm going to get through my 5 outreaches, even if it's like 10 at night after I put my kids to bed and I clean up the dinner dishes and I'm so tired I could die. I'm going to do one more thing.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard, Mom, especially moms. It's difficult for all of us, but you just have a couple non-negotiables. You're going to do that weekly.
So I wanted to ask you this because we have systems and AI company, right? Outside of the podcast that we run. And we're doing a lot more AI automation and integration. If you had that product or system in place, what are the things that you think you would have automated and wouldn't automate?
Oh, that is a brilliant question, which we talk about now as we counsel other women that are in our industry, or we mentor and work with them. Here's maybe what I think. For services business, if we want to be the smartest one in the room, which is kind of what we have to be to get hired, but also to get hired at the amount we want to be hired for. We found ourselves doing a massive amount of data gathering. Maybe it was external research, maybe it was internal, whatever it was, we did a massive amount of data gathering. And we had a team of people that did that data gathering. A, they weren't always brilliant at it. And B, it was like, those were very, very expensive things to do. And it almost felt like, and I had this great guy that worked for me. He said, Beth, I feel like you can't do what you do until you go through this treasure trove of data that I've gotten you. And if I've gotten you the right thing, you can go what you do what you do within an hour and charge a lot for it. I was like, yeah. So it's funny when I think about AI automation for anything services related, how could you get me a bigger data set, a better data set? How could you have it pull more interesting curation, but also conclusions from it, so that you give the person who could charge the most this like nugget of amazing goodness that they can now counsel from, or they can deliver from? I feel like AI would be massive. And people always ask us, does that mean you wouldn't hire junior people? Oh my God, I would absolutely hire junior people. Granted, I might be able to hire less of them, but I would hire them to do the work with AI, like work with an AI partner to get this like golden nugget of data. It was so interesting because in our business, a lot of times CEOs, because we were dealing with financial information, they would say, how would this affect stock price? Well, I could get data. I couldn't get data going back in the markets 20 years around a certain press release announcement using certain words. I mean, the power that AI could give you to be able to say, in the last 22 years, anytime someone's put out X, Y, or Z, here's what's happened in their stock price in 5 minutes, 1 day, 5 days. a lot of times I was giving my gut, and sometimes it was right, sometimes it wasn't. To have
Mhm.
data behind that, to sit in front of a board and say 87% of the time in the last 20 years, this has been the outcome. That is why I'm recommending this strategy.
That
I
would
mean, I'm
have been,
sure there's many like more uses of it. I'm not an AI hound, but man, that would have been super powerful. We would have been a bigger business if we had that, and we would have been more profitable.
yeah. Yeah. And I think just in thinking about the entrepreneurs that I've come across that have asked for different things, a lot of them do not know the power of data. They don't know the power of information gathering, and they're not doing it the right way.
So what's super interesting about entrepreneurs, right, is that the average entrepreneur, the age, we're getting older
Mm-hmm,
because there's more older of us coming into it. And I
mm-hmm,
do think what you're saying makes perfect sense because I'm not sure. I
mm-hmm,
mean, I'm in my 50s. The reason that I'm so heavily into AI is because I really listen to my kids and my nieces and nephews, and I have one that's in AI. So he's constantly challenging me on usage. So I'm in there.
mm-hmm,
My partner, Victoria, who's amazing, is home with her kids. She's
mm-hmm,
like, what is it? And she's way more technologically savvy than me, but not in AI. So I do kind of think that might be where the
mm-hmm.
smarter we are and the more we get educated, it's a no-brainer that AI changes your business.
No, absolutely. And I think it could just be, too, a lot of fear around AI, right?
Yeah.
So, I would love more people to understand that it's not the fear of it necessarily taking your job. Will it replace some jobs? Absolutely. But I think if you learn to use it to better what you're doing, then you become more invaluable in the market. And I wish they would understand that concept, because you
Yeah.
can use it to scale exponentially.
Yeah. So think how powerful it would be for a person interviewing for a job with someone my age, right? So we're just getting comfortable with AI to say, I have 3 ideas of the way I might use AI in the job description that you gave me and the business that you operate in. Like, what an amazingly powerful thing. There's no way you wouldn't listen and
Mm-hmm,
think about what that person said. And
mm-hmm,
I'm sort of encouraging my kids specifically, but also the women I mentor to say, you have to, that's your approach. How I can help you do things better with this cool tool I have
mm-hmm,
versus, we're so terrified about losing jobs. And I do understand it, but I don't think robots are going to rule the world in 5 years. I think we might all be really smart because we figured out how to use it properly.
mm-hmm, I agree. And if you had to go back and give yourself advice, what advice would it be, and what tool would you use?
Oh my gosh. I mean, first of all, my 100% advice, which took me till 40 to figure out is, every morning spend 3 minutes and say, I'm so grateful. This is what I did right yesterday. This is
Wow.
my one hard thing I have to do today. And I did my hard thing yesterday, so I bet I can do today's hard thing. Like that's just my mindfulness thing that like I don't know why it took me so long. But I really feel like the thing that was in my business was just such a miss for me. And I always had to hire around it, but I never felt great about it. Is being able to make sense of large data sets to be able to pull the right conclusions from the data sets. And I
Mm-hmm,
always felt like until as we got bigger and we could really afford super smart statisticians, I'm not sure we always extrapolated correctly from the data we had. And I mean, I would assume there's a variety of AI tools that if utilized correctly and asked the right questions, could have gotten us things that took us, 3 weeks, could have gotten us it in 5 minutes. So do the analysis on how that affects margins. What's interesting in my field as I talk to practitioners is the prices, what we charge clients, that's not changing for
mm-hmm,
whatever reason, right? Because it should, but it's not. So imagine if you could cut 10% of your costs
mm. Wow.
and still charge the same thing. What we now do the math on 9 times cash flow.
Mm.
Additional 10% margins over that revenue base, 9 times cash flow valuation.
Wow. Powerful.
It's so so of course I'm always like, what money did I leave on the table? It's terrible.
Wow. Well, if you had to give advice to people that haven't set up their business from day one to structure it for sale, what are some of the things that they can look at doing now in order to position themselves a little better?
Oh yeah. Okay. And this is all over the book, which isn't out till September, but it's free and it's all over. I'm sure it's in your show notes, Female Mavericks, Our Founders File. So I think there's three things. One is we have a whole chapter, and there's a good newsletters on these, on your total addressable market, which is so many entrepreneurs, but particularly women, have a passion, and so they follow the passion, but they've never stepped back and said, okay, this is potentially $100 million market and it's growing. So if I get 1% of that market, I have a 7-figure business. And I feel like they do that too late and realize they've got to tweak their business because their core TAM, which is total addressable market, isn't of size. And when I throw out 100 million, women's eyes roll back in their head. And there's the 1% rule, which is just, if you could get 1% and that would be enough for you, go for it. So 100 million, AI is a different story. You're going to have a big enough TAM. So one is just making sure that you didn't just pick something you're passionate about. You pick something that could get you past 7 figures and is growing. Number two, do a ton of competitive analysis to look at deals that have happened in the market. And the great news is, when I was looking, all that was confidential. Now with AI, it's, what deals happen and at what multiples. So that's kind of helpful to say, okay, this is the market I'm going to serve. Even if companies have sold that are much, much larger than mine, I can see what they've sold for and I can get a sense of a multiple. So just make sure that deals do happen, even if it's much bigger companies. And then the third, and I swear this is the most important thing, have your non-negotiables for yourself and your business. So for us, Victoria had this amazing non-negotiable. And she at times was consulting with big old companies, names that you would know, around deals you would know, and she was amazing. But unless she was traveling, she was on the 4:45 train and she was with her kids for 2 hours. And then sometimes she would be up till 4 a.m. working, but she always managed that. And I think that gave her a feeling of power over life. For me, I just was unwilling to miss certain activities of my kids. And I openly told clients, you know what? My son has a big hockey tournament and you cannot call me on Saturday. And 95% of the time, I got fired by one client for it. In a career of 25 years, I got fired by one client for it. He told me I was spending too much time with my daughter, who had just broken her femur, and it was terrible. And I just thought, good riddance, you jerk. But that was it. Everyone else I felt like was like, oh, how does hockey go? I think people are human.
Right.
They really are. We have kids, we have nieces, we have moms, everybody. Come on, we're human. So I think one is a personal non-negotiable, and then the financial non-negotiable. Our financial non-negotiable was twofold, and it's one I would tell everyone to consider. One is, don't go cash flow negative for more than 3 months. Just don't. It's tough to get, unless you have the next version of AI, don't do it. And also, we always had enough personal money for anything we went in the hole. So if we were in the hole 20,000 after month 1 and month 2, if after month 3 we were going to be in the hole 30,000 and we couldn't cover that 30,000, we didn't go in the hole. And what we saw in our industry is that people made really, really big bets on employees and small businesses. And it wasn't that their bet was wrong. It's that they didn't have enough money for it to be the right timing. So maybe a great, really expensive new employee, a big sales guy, didn't end up being good until the end of year 1. And they did not have enough money to support that. So as much as it's always really attractive and we want to think about cash flow negative, that puts you in the most vulnerable situation for your business. And you're in the hole and you don't have a sellable business until you go positive. So we put off salaries, we put off hiring, we put off big things that probably would have allowed our business to grow faster because we didn't want the risk of it being ill-timed. And you've got to figure out for yourself, but
Right.
always know your personal non-negotiable,
Mm-hmm.
your financial non-negotiable. And then, you know how I said I do that mindfulness routine at the beginning of every day, including my one hard thing? I always rewrite my non-negotiables because I am someone who negotiates in my own head.
With yourself.
No, I could probably miss that. No, I could probably do that. So I need it in black and white so I remind myself every day, or like the area gets gray and I'm willing to sway a little bit.
Yeah, that is something that is, I believe that knowing now, you have to have boundaries. You have to have boundaries around your time. You have to have boundaries around what you will and will not accept from clients. And
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, and you have to be willing. I mean, yeah, it's funny. Just before I got on this with you, I was talking to someone about a client she's really struggling with, and she wants to fire the client. I'm like, well, financially, you can't do that. So we don't think we can fix this problem. But I said last night, I said, why don't you write how you would write a new contract so that you're not in this current situation? And I got it this morning in my email, and it was perfectly done. And so she just had to think one step further to say, okay, I can't fix this, but now I want a financial boundary with this client and I don't have it. Saying the time to do that is when they still love you, either contract or kickoff meeting.
No.
That's the time to do it. You don't get to introduce new boundaries at month 6.
Correct. Because I mean, there's always this thing called scope creep, right?
Yes.
You don't. If you do
in
not,
every industry.
Yeah, you have to define it earlier out. And how did you learn that lesson?
The wrong way. I can still remember the woman who was like the absolute worst, abused everybody, asked, for more work than she had ever paid for, and intimidated everyone because she was super wealthy. And I learned exactly what my mentee just learned, which is, okay, it's going to be very clear in the contract. And then at the very first point where anyone steps over the line, I'm going to say, hey, would you like us to re-scope this month? This is work that we hadn't scoped. Super happy to do it. I have the capacity. I couldn't be happier. Would you like us to re-scope? And 9 times out of 10, they don't, but 1 out of 10, they do. And it was a good discussion, but I swear it took me 2 years to figure out I could have that discussion.
Right.
And the client was used to that discussion. I felt like I was pushing the envelope, or maybe I would lose the client because of it. None of that was ever true. You actually engaged in a real business discussion. I remember I had a client that I'm still really close to today that was like, well, show me your business model. I don't get why you charge more. So I did. I showed him what we charged him hourly, what we paid our people, how many hours were built in the contract, what we were working on, and what he was asking us to do. And God loved that guy. He goes, okay, how about I pay you another $2,500 a month and then you can do it? I was like, okay. But it was only because I decided to be vulnerable and be, first of all, just diffuse the angry situation by saying, hey, look, this is my business. I have 4 kids. I am the breadwinner. I can't lose money on accounts like yours. I will. And that kind of broke through the dam, and he sort of went, okay, well, let me understand it better. So I feel like guys are just naturally going back and forth and super comfortable with that. And I had to learn to get comfortable with that.
Yeah. It's a lot easier for them to negotiate and ask for what they're worth. And that is definitely it, because I feel we just do not have that sense of being able to do it for whatever reason. So when it comes to running a business, we're thinking the same way, where we're not going to advocate for ourselves in the business.
And I wonder if part of it is that they're fearless in the sense that, I'm not fearless. I don't want to lose money. I don't want to lose whatever, but I get a sense that men are so much more fearless. And if this guy fires me tomorrow, I'll get another guy. But when you look at our track records, we have great track records. We should be super confident about that. It almost just feels like it's a mindset shift. And I will say, my partner, Victoria, she did not get that gene.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, she is the first one to be like, nope, not doing that. You got to pay me double. She prices so much more aggressively than me.
Wow.
We used to have this thing, and actually there's a founder's file on it, and there's a video on it, which is funny. But basically, it's like I would come to her and be like, I think we should charge X. She would go to the client at 150% of X. And I would be like, they're never coming back. You've just made them really mad. We're not that kind of firm. We needed this business. And they would come back at about like 130%. And she
Mm-hmm.
would just quietly write that contract and send it to me. So I always like really learned from her. I remember asking, like, don't you think you'll make them mad? She's like, I don't know, Beth, this is business. So she got the better gene. I didn't get that gene. So I followed her.
Wow, I love that. I love that she's fierce and stood up for herself and knew how to price, because a lot of it comes down to how much are you willing to give
Yep.
for, to provide that service, right?
And it's the strength of your conviction internally to say, that is a really valuable thing I have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it would be hard for a competitor to recreate that thing. So I'm going to have the confidence of charging for what it's really worth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. What are some of the things that you look at when you're evaluating a new mentee? Like when you're going in, you're looking at their business. What are some of the things that you look at to identify a really good business model or a really good
Yeah,
business?
that's a good question. So I would say the first thing is, even at the 500,000 revenue level, I am amazed at women who don't discernibly know the difference between revenue and profits,
Huh.
where they say, "Oh, I'm making money,"
Mm-hmm.
but they're bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
So just like someone who comes to me super aware of profit, and they can answer the question of, you know, something like this, I should be able to make a 20% margin on, I automatically hone in on. I'm like, that person has thought of it. And the second is someone who is willing to build a P&L, build projections, even if they're great at Excel and they know how to do it, wonderful. If not, they're willing to learn something where they are willing to have their life month to month to month to month be tied to this physical, what I used to call it, the spreadsheet of truth. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we can say we had a great month because we sold a bunch of stuff. But if that profit number is low, we didn't have a great month. We
Mm-hmm.
have to diagnose. So I kind of feel like if you either don't know the difference between revenue or profits, don't care. I mean, I have a woman with a $400,000 business that still uses her personal checking account. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
That's not good. So that willingness to live and die by your projections and your P&L. And then
Mm-hmm.
the third is the right size total addressable market, and proof that there is a buyer within that market. Like, if you have those three things, you're going to make money on your business.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have all three of them. But I guarantee, I don't care if you are selling soles of shoes. If you have those three things, you will build a business that's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
there's a simplicity, because now I've done it twice and this is my third time. There's a simplicity to the stuff that makes it very clear if you're going to be successful or not. And it is almost never how great your idea is. I hate to say that, but
Mm.
it is. I've seen really great business ideas that the people couldn't execute them and they were failures. So it
Wow.
really is the simplicity of like knowing your financials, knowing the size of your market and that it's growing, and having very specifically identified an audience that you can get to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. And then in identifying your market and looking at the business structure, what are some key things that you think structurally outside of those things that they need to have if their intent is to later sell their business?
Yeah, they've got to be super clean.
Okay.
So you've got to have no problems with trademark patents, logos. That
Mm-hmm.
has to be super clean. You've spent a little bit of money with your lawyers on that. You have to have a super clean operating agreement if you have a partner. I always had partners.
Mm-hmm.
It you've got to, it has to be very clear that if you have money partners or business partners, it would take 100% vote to be able to sell the company, 50%, whatever. It has to be super clean that the buyer's lawyers can look at it and say, okay, they own everything they said they own. Getting them to sign on the dotted line with the operating agreement is easy. We don't have to go find a third partner not associated on a day-to-day basis with the business and convince him or her about the sale. So I think that's just number one, just clean that up. The second thing is, if you have trends in your financials, like you have a receivables problem, you can't collect on time, or you have $100,000 contracts, but you usually only collect 80,000. Those are going to be like big red flags. Other red flags are if you're project based, but you don't have return clients. They love retainer business, which you may or may not be able to build in your business. But so if you have retainers, they love that. And you collect from those guys, they love that. If your project, they just want to see some recurring nature of your business is super helpful to them. And then the last is like clean financials. You have always invested in a bookkeeper, which there are amazing numbers of stay-at-home mom bookkeepers who are like the best. And that's who we've always used. So you have really clean financials that the very first thing they're going to ask you for is a one-pager on your business, right? So you're going to sell the heck out of why you have customers and why people like you and you're priced right. And if you just had some extra money, you'd be able to grow it. That's number one. You're going to pass that. The second thing they're going to do is we want a summary financial statement. And so one, you want to be able to do that really quickly, which a good bookkeeper already has. And two, you do want to either have trends that show growth in top and bottom line, and or where you don't see that growth, you want it to be very clear why you had hiccups. I mean, we had hiccups with the product that we were selling to the wrong buyer. And so we had a year that was flat when every other year had been up. And so because we were super knowledgeable of that and our financials were really clean, when we sent our first financial package over, we called out the flat year. We didn't wait for them to find it and asked it. We called it out. We gave them all the math as to why it was, and we showed them the growth following that. So to the extent that you have really clean that show some growth and traction, all you're trying to do is smooth the path and make it really easy for the buyer to get into an internal strategic decision, right? So you want whoever is the potential buyer at the firm, whoever is your advocate, we should buy these guys because you want it to be so easy for him or her to be like, look, this is a streamlined sale. Their financials look good. They own everything. They collect. They got recurring clients. So so the basic business problems are fine. Now let's get to the strategy of why your business fits in this business. Your whole goal is to make that a fast, simple, slippery conversation. So they're not debating, wait a second, they had a 10% churn last year. You're trying to get to, is this a right fit? And is it strategic? And remember, when they're having a strategic discussion about your business, you're going to get a higher valuation. The more hair on your business, that number gets penalized.
Right.
Yeah, and you can control that on a weekly, monthly basis. Like we had a moment where our clients were big Fortune 1000 companies, and they're the slowest payers in the world. And we had a point where our bookkeeper was like, hey, your receivables, you've got old receivables. We had a couple that were past 4 or 5 months. And she wisely told us, if they're more than 4 or 5 months old, the buyer's going to discount them. They're going to take them out of your revenues because they're going to say they're non-collectible, even though we did ultimately collect them. So we were constantly cleaning up
the book. Right.
Yeah, we made a hire on a bookkeeper early. We hired a CFO early, and that was always worth it. And I do kind of feel like a lot of the mentees that I work with right now, they were like, we don't have enough money for a bookkeeper. I'm like, you have 5 hours a week at $200 an hour for a bookkeeper. like,
Mm-hmm.
or a
It's
month.
worth it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because you want to be the minute when you're thinking you're going to sell a business, it's not your time horizon. You don't get to pick the moment. The
Right.
market picks that moment. Suddenly
Wow.
everyone's like, oh, I need AI automation in this space and there aren't enough companies. We're going to find one.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to pick when multiples of your business type spike. You have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Your entire job is to, when that moment is that you are ready and you have the most pristine story to tell
Mm-hmm.
when someone needs it. So,
Wow.
I mean, we sold the second business a little bit early because we would have liked to be a little bit larger, but the moment was there. I mean, thank goodness we did, because the political rhetoric, which I think will probably go back the other way in 2 years, but the political rhetoric had gotten bad. But we sold 2 or 3 years before that, earlier than our timeline was.
But it was the right
Because it was
time.
our second time around, we were clean. We were
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, I think Victoria and I we hired a banker, but I think we did the investment pitch
Right.
ourselves, like over the weekend, because we're like, oh, we know this. We've messed this up before. Now we're ready.
Wow. Wow. Oh, that sounds great.
But
I
at
love it.
that point on the market, you have to be ready when the market comes.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody just needs to remember that. You're always looking for that opening in the market where you're like, oh, people are trying to build what I have, and I
Mm-hmm.
have something already built.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is going to be an easy turnkey for that buyer. And that's when you have some negotiating room.
Have you gotten any clients recently that you found aren't really clear on their business? Like they couldn't do a one pager if their life depended on it because they're selling this thing. They're just not clear on their business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does. I actually have someone that I'm working with right now who she had to redefine what I call buying persona, which I think people call ICP, something, whatever. I call it buying persona. And it was kind of interesting because how she came was, my business is hemorrhaging money, but I have a zillion clients.
Mm-hmm.
And when we looked at the cost per client, it became really clear to her that her buyer was too expensive to go find.
Wow.
And so we ended up talking a lot about, well, who are easier to find that could use your system. She tweaked her system, got this easier audience, and now both profit and revenue and profit are up. But I think that's a lot of time what it is, which is, and I've made this mistake in the second business. I thought our buyer was a financial type. In fact, the buyer for ESG was never the CFO, never figured that out for a year. It was the GC, it was the lawyer. So same product, same method of delivery, different marketing, different person.
Wow.
And this is exactly what this woman just did, where she was like, okay, she had been selling to coaches and she was like, well, I think what I really have is a great sales system. I'm like, great, because sales systems, there's millions of easy people to find.
Yep.
And so it was incredible what she did in like 2 weeks. She called
Wow.
me. She was like, call me right now. And I thought, oh my God, something terrible has happened. So I called her and she said, I cannot believe what I'm about to tell you, but can I tell you what I just closed in the pipeline? And she said it was all because she changed her thinking and realized she had to think about cost per client better. And that forced her to see this is not a sustainable business, even though I have a great system. Yeah, I think we all need each other to tweak. Like,
Yeah.
I think just having an outside party to just say, this is what I see. We had a really interesting discussion and I was pushing her one other way. She ultimately figured it out herself. We both figured out she had the wrong buyer.
Right.
We figured out who the right buyer was.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I always insist on, like, even listening to this podcast, you get clarity from that. Diving deep on anything that gives you clarity into your business. You have to look at your numbers, who is coming in, types of people, even if you like working with those people, how long in the cycle, how many times do they have to see your messaging,
and is there someone, could you find someone that wouldn't take 12 months, but would take 2? And how do you do that? Yeah. I think we get so sold on our business idea.
Oh, yeah.
that we just think, oh, everyone's going to love this. Are you kidding me? Turns out they do not. Or if they love it, they don't. Like in our case, they didn't have the budget. They're like, you better go find the guy with the budget for the thing you're selling because it's not me. And I thought, oh, that was really good advice.
Yeah. No. And I love the way, I love that. If you have a great product, you have to find the person that's willing to buy it at what you want to sell it for. So
yeah. Right. There's 3 chunks to it. Exactly what you just said. Right product, right person, right dollar amount that fits your business model. Yeah. No, that's a great point.
And I see it a lot. And I mean, even for ourselves, people come to us and they want us to build these really extraordinary things. And, they're not willing to pay that for what it is they're asking to be built. And I'm like, you know what? It just may not be the right person.
Yeah, you are clearly in services. I understand that completely.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't need that. You can help educate.
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. A lot of people think they need more than they really need. They don't. Sometimes less is more, but I don't think they understand. And then that goes back to clarity. Unless you have a full understanding as to your business, you're not really going to understand what it is you need for your business.
Yes. And you'll spend too much time with a potentially incorrect client fit, which is, I always did that as well in the first business. I feel like, no, I'll make it work, but there has to be some gating things where you say, check. This person should go. This person is worthy of more of my time. This project could be of value enough. And you also have to get really comfortable saying, I am not your person. I wish you great luck. I have a couple ideas for you. Here's who you could talk to, but this is not my firm. We're not the right ones. That took me forever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Because you want the business, but not all business is the right business. And that
you're going to make payroll.
Yep. That took me years to learn.
Oh, yeah.
If you had to go back, who would be your first hire? Other than you had said that your bookkeeper would have been up there.
Yeah, she would have been up there. Trust me. This is going to sound crazy, but again, because it's services, our first hire should have been HR. And here's why.
Oh, wow.
It was increasingly competitive to hire really smart people. And I think we were trying to do it by like our personalities, which didn't always work. So I think that was number one. We spent way too much time and money hiring. And the second is, I think in services, if you want to scale, you have to somehow figure out how someone else can deliver just about what you as a senior person can deliver, right? They're not you, they're not the owner, but just enough or where they're really delivering value. And I think that comes from tools and training. And it took us way too long to make the investment in tools and training to be able to really grow our business where we didn't have to be on a client. And I've thought about it so much, I'm not sure that I could come up with any other hire that wouldn't be HR. Because in services, you're all about, if you can't deliver it, the team that does deliver it is the value. You're not there to oversell it. Someone else has to. And so I really think we would have scaled faster had we had a recruiting machine and then had a training machine.
Ooh, I love that.
I mean, and I feel like AI must play like now I think about how we ended up doing training. I feel like you would have used so many parts of AI, right? You could, because what we were doing is we were saying, okay, let's train you on this specific product that we deliver. Well, imagine if you could feed all the times you've done that product, all that into AI with very specific questions and said, build a training module. At least this would have been the beginning of something. So I would, in services, that's where I would have leaned into. And I think it took us too long to do that.
And just hearing you say that means that you also spent a lot of time developing a really great product to be able to give someone to represent your company. So that must have taken some time to flesh that out.
Yeah. And I think that I felt like as a founder had to be mine. Like I had to live and die and believe in that product, even if I was wrong. but I
Mm-hmm.
was the one selling it externally. I was the one selling it internally. Like, I felt like that was something that I was intellectually very interested in doing and uniquely capable of doing. When you got to recruiting and training, I mean, I should have been the last person on the list. I just, that wasn't my thing.
Right. Right.
And I should have seen that hole a little bit early. And I think Victoria and I, as every founder is, you're
Mm-hmm.
out selling, you know? You are out there. You got to get this. You get on a plane, you do whatever you have to do. And then you call and you go, okay, we got it. Get to it. Well, that's not reasonable. You've got some person in the office that wasn't part of the selling. They may not have delivered the product that many times. And you're like, okay, you got it. You know, so they should have had a lot more tools. I always really appreciated the people that work for us that were like, I'm going to sit outside your office until you have 15 minutes for me because I need you before I go to step 2 on this. And I thought, you know,
Wow.
other people would quietly try it, but then we had some great people that were like, nope, I need to get in your head. So when you have 15 minutes, I will get in your head.
Oh,
And again, I think there's a lot better tools for that now.
oh, I love that you said it too. A lot of founders have stuff in their head, and even when we meet with them, we tell them, "Hey, listen, you need to fill out this clarity form because we don't know what
Yeah.
you have to be
Yeah.
able to help you. Like we need to know everything." And a lot of the times, they're going back to these things that are like they started it 5 years ago. They've
Yep.
been doing the same thing, and it's literally just stuck in their head. They've never put it onto paper.
And they're not, I mean, you know this as a founder, but like you never slow down.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I mean, I always felt like this one really awesome guy that I'm still really close to, he somehow had like such a nice way about him that he got me out of my own head. And I could really give him all the background that I never could if you were just like, you know, running to catch a plane. I
Mhm.
think whatever way we as founders can transfer information,
Mhm.
we better make that a priority. And I didn't always. And so sometimes it's in person, but maybe there are like a lot better tools to do that with AI and AI automation right now to get what's in here or something that you just learned in a meeting
Mhm.
to give everyone the benefit of it. There
Mhm.
have to be great ways to do that. And again, like that's how we scale. We put
Mhm.
what's in our brain into someone else's brain who might be better at product delivery than we ever were.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
feel like that's what we do in services.
Mhm.
So that's why I always get excited about AI because I think you could probably do a lot with it.
Yep. Yep. I agree. I agree. All right. Well, if you had to give our listeners 5 tips that you think would help them get them from wherever they are to a better place in their business, what are the 5 things that you would recommend for them?
All right. Number 1, if you write down nothing ever, write down your one hard thing a day. You know, we all have like these big dreams. I'm going to get my business to 10 million. That's awesome. You're not going to do that tomorrow. But what are you going to do today? What's the one step that would get you there? And make it hard and meaty and just make it one. But that's like those like obstacles you push forward on. And then suddenly you look up in a year and you're like, oh my God, I broke the 7-figure mark. So number 1 is do one hard thing a day. Number 2, remember you're the salesperson. Unless you're a huge company, at least a portion of your day, for me, it was almost a quarter of my day was spent selling. And selling isn't just a new business sale, it's networking and keeping in contact.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, know your financials, know your financials, know your financials,
Mm-hmm.
know them, and know what it looks like. When people say, I don't know if I'm able to hire someone, I'm like, your financials know. Go back to them and they will tell you what the answer is. I think especially for women founders, is it's okay to be uncomfortable. Your gut is probably right a lot, but if your gut is telling you to do something and you're feeling discomfort so you don't do it, like figure out ways mentally to push through to that. Because I think it's not always, I think discomfort in business for women, we don't like it. But when we push forward past it a bunch of times, we will learn it's an okay thing and we can overcome it. And my last and honestly my best in what meant the most to me is over your career, make sure that you have built a set of advisors. And, we break them up into cheerleaders, people who tell you can do anything, compensators, people whose brain you can constantly pick about stuff you don't know, but you need to know. And then connectors. And we all know connectors. When you call someone and they're like, yeah, no, I know 3 guys that do that. Hold on, let me call them right now. You will not have cheerleaders, connectors, compensators. You will not have your kitchen cabinet year 1 of your business. If you have 1 or 2 of those, awesome. And then the next year, you're going to have another 1 or 2. And the next year, you're going to have another 1 or 2. And I will tell you that by the end of the second business, those connectors were delivering us large clients. We would not have gotten, they were delivering us shots at large clients we could not have gotten to on our own. But that was coming from a decade of care and feeding and nurturing and support and friendship building that we did over a period of time. And then the opportunity comes up and, a connector calls a CEO of a company and says, you got to hire these guys. They're the smallest group you'll talk to, but you got to hire them. I mean, in our business, that was really huge. So if you can, there's so many things that we all have to do every day, but if you cannot ignore your network, building it in an authentic way, it doesn't pay off on day 1, but it does pay off a lot.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Beth, thank you so much for being here today and sharing. Oh, thank you so much. I know they would have gotten a ton of value from this. How can they find you for our listeners that are just listening to the podcast and not actually watching it on YouTube?
Go on to femailemavericks.com, www.femailemavericks, and when you get there, we have a newsletter called Founders Files, and you'll get that weekly. It's free. It will always be free. Subscribe to it, and you can go back into the archive and look at all those things. And I promise there'll be something that relates, and it will always be free. And then at some point in the next few weeks, you'll also see a pre-order for the book if you have interest in that. And I promise that's a lot of fun. It's very, very descriptive on how to do everything we talked about today, but we got ourselves into some real scrapes, especially with our kids, and they're in there. And so if you have kids and you read it, you'll feel so much better about whatever bad thing you think you did to your kid yesterday, because we did it worse. And all of our kids are not in jail and love us and talk to us every day. Thank God.
I love that. Love that. Beth?
Lucky us.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Thank you for being a guest on our show.
Oh, that was so fun. Thank you so much for having me.